Hello out there.
We're on the air.
It's Rink Moose Talk tonight. The beers are cold.
The mics light up.
And the boys get set to fight. The gloves come off.
Opinions get thrown.
And someone slips on ice. One man howls.
The other scowls.
But the show must go on. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
You're an announcer with a long stick from time to time.
With hockey flows
and more shots known.
Pierre Maguire's life, not John's a leaf.
Ovechkin's teeth
and Hoffman's crazy wife. When Carey slumps
and Bergevin stomps,
Duran's not LaFontaine. Jokes aside,
it's podcast time,
and Rink Moose is the name.
Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 26 of the Rink Moose Podcast. This time, happy to be joining you all from the Rink Moose studio here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Thank God.
I am one of your hosts, Nick Costu, along with my good pal, the annoying fellow who just interjected rudely, of course, as per usual, Kyle Nice. Kyle, how are you doing on this fine Saturday night, hockey night in Canada?
Nick, as much as I don't want to see you very much, this office we're in is a few shades better than my closet back at home, so I'm quite happy to be here. And with that said, I have to lay a huge egg on you. I'm sorry.
What's this?
I'm going to be quitting fantasy hockey next year. As you know, the draft picks are flying all over the board. So I'm quitting fantasy hockey, and I'm going to start a new little fantasy. I'm going to start my Bachelor fantasy.
The Bachelor fantasy.
It's really taken my household by storm. My workmates are all into it over at TSN there. So yeah, you know what? It offers a bit more drama than your typical Leafs and Habs game.
Okay, so I don't want to get too deep into this, but as you know, and all the other Bachelor fans know, is they're getting to the end here, are they not?
They are getting to the end.
So
Colton.
I don't know anything about
Colton Underwood.
Okay, yeah, I have no context about this season.
He's
but
lying.
For
he
any,
knows
any
all
of,
about
any
it.
of those listeners tuning in, who's the favorite here? Who's your money on here in these final few weeks?
For all you listeners, I know you're watching this shit, so I'll just put it out there. I got a favorite out there, and everyone else is gunning for her. Her name's Cassie. I don't know her last name. Cassie out there. And you know what? There's some drama brewing. We had a little preview of her getting into a skirmish with Kerpa.
Who's Kerpa?
She's one of the boring ones.
Okay.
So Kerpa feels threatened, and she's obviously trying to start shit next week. So sparks are going to fly, Nick, and I simply can't wait for the action.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have no interest in tuning in here, but I will just tune in till the end just to see if this name of yours ends up winning, because that'll basically tell me whether or not you have odds of turning into some Bachelor fantasy, expert come next year, and whether or not I take this seriously.
Oh, Nick, I'm gonna start putting money on this. This could be a cash cow for the Rink Moose community here.
Wow.
So if you're listening and you want to get some extra dollars in your pocket, maybe I start throwing in a little weekly Bachelor update. Who knows?
You're gonna start making an episode soon enough. Your own podcast.
Oh my God.
Bachelor podcast.
Now that's an idea. Folks, we're rebranding Rink Moose. All of a sudden, we're Bachelor Moose.
No. We'll give you a 30-second segment every week, but not a show.
We'll replace the Pierre Maguire segment.
I don't know if that can be replaced. But.
He's cut from the show. He doesn't have any newsworthy anecdotes today, does he? Or for this past week?
No, he's been pretty quiet. I mean, he's having to keep
yeah.
it low week after all, the scandals and the allegations. So
yeah.
He's keeping it on the down low.
Absolute best behavior from Pierre, I guess. But Nick, I mentioned the Leafs and Habs. It was quite the doozy from this past week, probably the most notable game out there. It was just an OT thriller. I think, 5-4, 4-3-ish?
I think it was lower than 5-4. It was a while ago at this point.
Yeah, last
an overtime
Saturday.
Game, yeah,
last week. But it really got everyone chattering on the internet here, and it begs the question, and I want to ask you this: what is your favored round one matchup for Toronto? We got a couple options here. Things could change, but I think they're pretty settled into their second place spot in the Atlantic there. obviously we've got Boston, and then we've got Montreal. And to be fair, Nick, those are really your only two options when you consider this first round matchup. I don't see anyone else slithering into that third in the Atlantic spot.
Well, you look at it right now, and there's a good 6-point gap between first and the wild card in their spot there second. That's between Montreal and Toronto. They still have 2 games against each other. Another one coming up next Saturday.
That's huge.
That'll be big. So if you ask me, those are 2 games you get head-to-head. If you're Montreal, you got to be looking at those. And honestly, you asked me the question from the top here, what matchup I'd rather have. From both a fan perspective, in terms of what I want to see, and who I think would be the most advantageous opponent, I got to go with the New York Islanders. This is a team who I think they can easily run on over, given they're just a rookie team. They're like a Columbus from 2 years ago, a team who just got in and are happy to be there and aren't necessarily expecting to make a run. I know they're first in their division right now, but I don't know if Washington and Pittsburgh, if they're going to stay in their nap for too long, because to me it looks like they're just napping and they're going to wake up sometime soon. So I could see them, I just can't see them being a threat in the playoffs. And I think it would be great to see Lamoriello versus Dubas, that whole feud. It would just be great. Tavares coming back, the fans getting on Tavares. I would just, as much as I'm a Leaf fan and I'd love, obviously, to see them win that series, what material it would be for just sports drama in general if John Tavares loses that series to the Islanders. I think that would be really something.
That's the reporter in you talking, Nick. That's the media man in the making is showing his true colors here. Now, what you're asking though is extremely, extremely unlikely, because they're in different divisions. So we'd have to see Toronto jump Tampa, and then or Toronto fall to the wild card. I guess that's what.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They fall to the first wild card. Montreal leaps them. Boston leaps them. And we get an Islanders and Leafs.
You know what? It just that is more possible than I thought. It just hinges on a couple things here. Now, we've all been saying we think Boston's most likely to load up at the deadline. Out of those 3 guys, Montreal is sort of teetering on the fence. They've kind of filled in their bottom 6 with a couple good guys who we'll mention later, Dale Weiss and Nate Thompson. But whether they think they're in a position organizationally to make a big move like that and trade away futures for a big piece, I don't see it. So out of the 3 of those guys, I don't see Montreal making any big leaps and bounds forward. So. Again, very unlikely, but what a storyline that would be. Truly and greatly that would be.
So your pick's Montreal Leafs.
Nick.
The duel, and let's get this off the record here. I know this was leaked earlier in September when we were doing our predictions. Just so everyone knows, this man I'm talking to is a Leafs and Habs fan. For all of you who actually think that's something that can exist,
it does exist
in this world. Everyone he's mentioned this to has thought he's just been such a phony. He's a phony fan.
People
That's
say
what
that.
you are.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. You mentioned that. I don't want to see either of these teams go down in the first round. That would just be heartbreaking. So I don't want to see a Leafs Habs, although at the same time, for the storyline, for the drama, for the history, I really want it to happen.
Bob Cole calling those games.
Oh, if only he was still around to call it.
He would.
He would? You think he'd come back?
Come out of retirement just to call that series.
Absolutely.
I think he would. They'd make him.
Yeah, that would be just an epic story, Bob Cole. Because you know what? I can't picture a Montreal playoff game without Bob. Like, he's just so ingrained in that space.
Oh, I think you're right.
It's a huge letdown to see a playoff game without Bob Cole, but that's what it's like. So, you know what? On that topic, just quickly, I think the Habs are right where they want to be. I think you're right. They want to face New York Islanders over the Leafs any day. Islanders, they've been great defensively, but they've got some negatives too. They've got some pitfalls. So I think in terms of a matchup, Habs are right where they want to be. They might slyly lose some key games just to stay in that spot and not leapfrog Boston.
I'd actually disagree with you on that one. I think they'd like Boston. I think in recent history, you look at last 2 to 3 years, Montreal has had the Boston Bruins number. You watch these games head to head in the regular season. Montreal's winning the bulk of them. Carey Price is in the head of Patrice Bergeron and
Yes.
Brad Marchand. Claude Julien, he's in their head. I think that would be a great series.
Oh, that would be.
Sign me up for that.
We've got any way you cut it, Nick. We've got an amazing series coming up. What I don't want, the most boring outcome, is Toronto-Boston, of course, because we've seen that narrative play out before.
Yeah.
So if we can avoid that, then something magical is going to happen in the first round.
Give me Leafs Islanders. Give me Boston Montreal. Two
Yes.
great series.
Or Montreal Toronto. Any one of those, and we'll be happy.
And of course, that would actually put them in two separate brackets. That would put Toronto
Interesting, yes.
in the Metro bracket,
yeah,
Montreal in the Atlantic. So you could have a conference final between the two.
boy, yeah. God, you got to think Toronto would love to be in that Metro bracket. Because I don't think they really truly fear anyone in that bracket. Look, you got Tampa and you got your arch enemies Boston in this bracket. You don't want to be there.
They seem to match up better with those other teams. Like when
Exactly.
when Toronto plays Pittsburgh, they play them well. When they play Washington, they play them well.
Yeah, even though and they were mentioning that even though Toronto did face Washington a couple of years back, it's not the same kind of
Columbus,
feeling.
they tend to win against Columbus.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, fuck it. It almost seems like a shoe-in for
Yeah.
them to win it against any of those guys. But we all know anything can happen. So, yeah, we're just crossing our fingers for a cool little matchup. But we got to move on here, Nick. Funny storyline here. Randy Carlyle has finally been let go, mercilessly chopped from the Anaheim Ducks. And wouldn't you know it, I never thought I'd see the day. I don't know how often this happens, but Bob Murray, the general manager, who's got zero coaching experience, not even at the Pee Wee level, is the current interim head coach of the Anaheim Ducks. And wouldn't you know it, they won their first game 1-0 on a crazy shutout from that rookie goaltender whose name escapes me. But boy, oh boy, what a crazy little experience. I mean, think of what the players are thinking. Like, the guy that signs your contracts, that pays you all the money, he's going to be in the room. He's going to be running the practices. Well, semi-running the practices. This guy's got his microscope and he's got his magnifying glass on all these guys. He's character hunting. Right now, he's thinking, how am I going to switch up this roster? Who's working in this, this social dynamic, and who's not working, and who really wants to be here? So this Bob Murray guy, he's onto something. I mean, he knows they're not going to do any winning this year. So what he's doing is he's doing his due diligence, and he's learning a lot about the players from a coach's perspective. It's a really interesting situation.
And yeah, it's an interesting tie-in here, the Dallas Eakins tie-in. That's where I want to go with this, because this brought me back to, I believe he was laid off with the Oilers. McTavish, he took over from like a more managerial role to a coaching role, and he kind of did the same thing, the same kind of headhunting. So this brought me back to there. And then the funny thing with the Dallas Eakins tie-in is he's the coach of their AHL team in San Diego. I bet you didn't know they had a hockey team in San Diego, did you, Kyle?
Well, I think I might have known.
The Gulls.
The Gulls, yes,
Yeah.
of course.
So he's there. Apparently, they're having a great season with all those young studs. The
Troy Terry and Sam
Comtois.
Steele. Yep.
So they don't want to mess with that chemistry.
No, they got some guys coming up for sure.
Yeah.
They do.
So they're letting him kind of finish out the season there. I assume he'll come in next year when Murray's done doing this kind of purge of these bad spirits
Fair.
luring around the
Yeah.
Dallas the Anaheim bench.
Fair.
But I got to be honest. I'm still confused about that Cogliano trade. It kind of came out of nowhere, and I've always liked him. He's like an Iron Man. He played like 700 straight game. St. Michael's College School alumni. Character guy. Character written all over him. He was like a face of the Ducks. This guy was there with Perry and Getzlaw from the old days. For them to just trade him for like nothing, like it was basically like a swap with him and some other player, I just thought that was very odd. And I'll tell you what, since they made that trade, they have been on this streak. It has not been for the better. And you look at Dallas, huge winning streak. They've been fantastic since that deal. So I don't get that deal that Bob Murray made. I really don't. And I think it's really costed them.
Yeah, and you got to think it might just rub some of the veteran guys the wrong way when you trade a good dressing room guy for what seems like not a whole lot to your group. You almost lose the trust and the confidence from your top guys, like a Getzlaff kind of thing. So yeah, you definitely don't want to be getting those guys on your bad side. But I don't know. And Cogliano, he used to be a really fast guy. I think he might have won the fastest skater competition way back. Yeah, way back when he was on Edmonton. So yeah, it's a curious little thing. But this whole Bob Murray thing, I got to think maybe they're a little bit better than they were when they're in their huge losing ways. I mean, I can't see them getting any worse than they were before. They just shut Gibson down, which is a great move. Perfect. What you want to do now is you want to lose pretty consistently. So I'd say, yeah, give everything a go, experiment, whatever happens, and just lose with dignity. And I think this is a good draft for them to help stock those cupboards, which are not that bad even. So yeah, you know what, the Anaheim Ducks will fade into the wind this season with some pride and in good form, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the future looks bright. You talked about the talent they got in San Diego. The guys who are coming up right now, you tack in another first-rounder this year with the depth of the draft coming up. As you know very well, you've studied it very closely. Even if you don't get Jack Hughes, you're going to get a quality player if you choose in that top 8 range, which looks like they're going to be in. So, hey, I know it's different for the fans there. They're used to getting a playoff run every year, seemingly. That's been the story there in Anaheim. But I think they just got to stay patient here and wait on and see what happens.
And yeah, Nick, just to quickly finish off on Anaheim, with this whole retooling, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, you have to wish and hope that you've got a little bit of life left in guys like Getzlaf and Perry and these older guys that still have some contract money tied in, because I mean, eventually those guys are going to disappear and get replaced, but if you want any success in the next couple of years, you're going to need something from those guys. So that's the last little bit on Anaheim. But when we're in the basement like this and when we're talking about negative, why not keep going and let's go to the Avs, Nick, the Colorado Avalanche.
I can't wait to talk about this team.
I got a lot of notes here. So, you want to start or you want me to start?
I don't know, man. I mean,
don't talk
I want to
about...
start. I'm going to start on this one, okay?
Ahead. Yeah, because mine are more like excuses and trying to justify.
Our mutual friend Raymond Ferraro. He had the benefit of seeing this team twice in person this week. Once in Winnipeg, once in Colorado, when they played the Leafs. He said, quote, "This team's spirit is broken."
Yes.
For a team of Nathan McKinnon. For his spirits to be broken, that's pretty rough. This team, and hey, I'll give you a Pierre Maguire lowdown here too. Pierre looks back to December 17th. We are recording this podcast February 15th, about 2 months after this date Pierre points to. Up until that date, December 17th, this team was on fuego, going nuts. Okay, then Barry Trotz and the Islanders come into Colorado. They execute a perfect game plan. They shut them out. And Kyle, since that very night, 2 months ago, Colorado is 5 wins and 20 losses. 5-20. Pierre Maguire's theory is that night Trotz executed a game plan that all these teams have now been copying, trying to just power on that first line. They're not worried about the other units. It's a copycat league. That's what these pundits keep saying, and sure enough, that seems to be the case with how these teams are just rolling over the Avalanche. And if you look at the standings now, they've fallen out of a playoff spot entirely. They're a good 3-4 points back. One of the worst power plays in the league of late. This is a team that had in my opinion, two good goaltending that was going to, it just wasn't unsustainable. Unsustainable goaltending from the start. They were getting .940 save percentages. That wasn't going to carry on. You were getting unsustainable production from your top line. That was historically good numbers. That was like numbers from the 1980s. That couldn't have held up. To me, this looks like the team that I predicted from the start of the season. I told you this team was not going to make the playoffs. And I look to be on my high horse right now. Oh, and one more thing. I cannot believe that I believed in this team at some point this season. Because I did.
You did.
I did. I watched a few games, and I was like, this team's awesome.
Pierre was talking about this team potentially being in a final against the Leafs.
Tampa.
Tampa, yeah. Oh, this could be a final right here.
That.
You know what? Like we were all kind of on that boat because
Rose-colored glasses.
we saw so much out of these guys. We saw the goaltending and the defense had some balance. We knew they were a one-line team, but what are you going to do? Now I'm going to try to justify as much as I can here and hopefully bring some light back into this dark place. So how it's a great theory, by the way, by Pierre that one of the best defensive coach in hockey figured them out, and that everyone's copying that. But I mean that's one theory. It's possible, but I'm looking at this team and I'm looking at the season, and I'm thinking to myself, this top line has carried a 1-ton load up a hill for the entire first half of the season, and they did a formidable job. They were talked about as one of the best lines we've seen in recent history. Now, when you talk about the spirits being broken, I think it ties into these guys a little bit. Just knowing mentally that you have to be on, your line has to be clicking, there has to be chemistry and production every night, or else you're probably going to lose. Now, I know it's something top players should expect. You should expect out of these guys, but I can't imagine the mental rigors of you're being keyed in on every night, every single day you play. There's a coach simply figuring out how to stop your one line, and that's got to be hard on these guys. Now I think they have a chance of pulling themselves out of this, but it's going to have to start where it stopped. It's going to have to start with this top line. If these guys can figure out a way to become superhuman again for a 2-month stretch, we're going to need 2 months, then I think it's possible, because we all know this team has the character, the heart, the pure guts, as we all know from that amazing playoff round last year. But too many things have to correct themselves, and you know what? It's a long shot to pull themselves out of this, but they're not too far. Statistically and point-wise, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's going to take a lot from this top line. You're going to have to see Rantanen and McKinnon in MVP form for the rest of the year for them to have a good shot here.
And you can't say the opportunity's not there.
Oh,
because the way these Western Conference teams are fighting for that final wild card, it's like they're on a bunch. They're all on tricycles.
Yes,
and they're
it's
slowly
ridiculous.
making their way to that playoff, race. And
everyone's taking a turn losing a wheel and falling over.
Basically, that's what this
Everybody.
is. You can be a 500 hockey club and be in that playoff spot right now.
Yeah.
It's a historically bad year for the West. And hey, if they don't make it, they'll look back and say the opportunity was there. I mean, everyone was not playing well, just as poorly as we've been playing of late, and it was there. So they got to hunker down, have a short memory, forget what just happened the last 2 months, and like you said, just turn on the engine for 2 more months here and try to figure this out. What I will say in fairness is they've had a very tough schedule. Hellacious, as Pierre would say.
Really?
Nashville, Toronto, St. Louis. I looked back at the schedule 3 weeks ago and I said these next 3 weeks are going to be very tough on them. And they have been. And they're still going to be tough for the next 3. I believe they've got like Nashville, Winnipeg, and like Chicago coming up. 3
That's
tough
nasty.
games. Yeah. But after that, it evens out a little. So, you hope they get it together here. And I don't want you fans to get to get the wrong picture here. I like this team. I like the coach there at Bednar. I like the media members there. I really love the commentary team. I like the fan base. I really want this team to go far. So, I think it's there, and I would love nothing more than for them to get that final wild card spot.
And any way you slice it, Nick, whether they do good or whether they do bad, there's no denying this organization is still in a fantastic position. We always toot the horn of Cale Makar over there, and he's continued to
From the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Yes, indeed. He continues to be amazing. He's leading the voting in Hobie Baker Award nominations, and there's a very, very faint chance that if the Colorado Avalanche do make a push late, that he will join the team, and barring any injury or whatever, he could jump into that lineup. But again, that's out there because his team does well in the NCAA. But they're in a fantastic position. Ottawa free falls continually, and they're going to be losing some star players in the near future. So it just looks bright for this team. And whatever happens, it's okay. But we'd love to see a push from these guys. So if you're ready to move on, we could get into the
Let's
Blues.
do it. I got a lot here to more talked about, so let's move on from this sad story in Colorado.
Yeah. So the Blues.
The exact opposite. Kind of
Literally the exact opposite. So they're killing it. They also suck.
They also suck.
And
how do you define that? What's the analysis?
They suck. They suck. They're riding a wave of good luck. They beat they beat Colorado today 3-0 somehow. I don't know how that
Jake Allen
happened.
pitched a shutout.
How the hell did what? That's just you know that's the bad omen of
32
Colorado.
saves.
Yeah, what the fuck happened there? You know, Allen's fighting for his job in the NHL right now. With Binnington stepping up, Allen's like, if I don't get this shutout here, I'm done.
Oh, he is, yeah.
I'm going to be in the ECHL in a month.
Pretty much.
So he stepped up today. I didn't watch the game or anything, but good for him. But we're looking at Jordan Binnington here, aren't we, Nick?
You wish you had him in fantasy, don't you?
I do not.
Really?
He's going to fall off a cliff.
9-1-1 and all those splits?
He's going to fall.
He's going to fall, eh?
As Bob McKenzie always says, the league always corrects itself.
So as I get into my playoffs in fantasy, he's just gonna fall off.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll hold
exactly
you
that.
to that.
Or a week before that, so you have doubts in your mind.
Okay, then I just pick up Allen.
No. I'll tell Braden to pick up Allen.
Oh, don't do that. Come on.
Well, no, I don't know. What I want to ask you is, there was a lot of talk earlier on in the season when they really did suck. You know, we're moving Pietrangelo. We hate Tarasenko's fat.
Mm-hmm.
What's their trade deadline looking like? We got about a week to go. Are they buyers now? Are they fully confident in themselves to make a push here? Or are they going to kind of stand pat like a Montreal situation?
I'm going to redirect you to last season. There was a significant move the St. Louis Blues made last season around the deadline. Do you remember what that move was?
I know they traded away a guy and people were pissed.
Paul Stastny.
Right.
And you had leaders in that dressing room like Pietrangelo saying, what's going on here? We're in a playoff spot, and Dougie Armstrong's trading away one of our top centermen.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I think they're kind of in a similar scenario. Doug, like, if you go off that MO, this GM doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's just going to trade away all his assets, his prospects, his picks to make a run. But he's also not the guy who's going to sell away his whole team, because then you're going to have guys like Ryan O'Reilly calling him out. So the way I see it, I think they're going to stay pat. They're going to maybe make a minor move to upgrade, but then simultaneously make a minor move to get like picks in the future. It's a smart, savvy way of managing, where you're contending for a playoffs and you're contending for a cups, but you're also keeping your window in the future open. And that's why we've seen this team, even with their depth up top, all these great players like Tarasenko, O'Reilly, they got all these prospects, Thomas, Kyrou. I mean, they're all there. So I see him doing the same, and I don't blame him. And I also need to give him credit, Doug Armstrong, because we were a month ago talking about the Tarasenko trade and how he could have been dealt to Carolina. You know, there were rumors out there, and he could have done it. This team was in a shitstorm, and they got it together, and they fired the coach, brought on the new coach, and they stayed patient. He stayed patient, and you look at where they are now, and it's one of the best stories in the league.
And do you know how those guys are doing, Kyrou and Thomas?
Thomas has been great. Thomas is a game changer. He provides. He doesn't score often. The numbers aren't there, but certain games he provides this instantaneous offense when the top guys aren't producing. Berube throws him on the ice, and he just makes a nice play. Like, he makes a nice scoring play. He either sets up a goal or scores a brilliant goal, and it's really nice. Kyrou, he's been up and down. I can say less about him, but they're in a good place. You had a Jaden Schwartz who was injured for a long time. He just came back. He's been relegated to more of a 2-3 line role, which has been good because you're getting the production out of the top line, the Shen, O'Reilly, Tarasenko line. Guys like Schwartz, he plays more of a two-way game. You don't ask so much out of him. He provides more depth offense. Bozak just came back from injury. He's kind of the same kind of guy. There's nothing to dislike about this team. I mean, the defense has been sound. And I just need to get this off too. Craig Berube, he will be a candidate for the Jack Adams Award.
No.
If you recall, I was sending you clips earlier this year of Mike Yeo after games, right? And he'd stand at the podium, and I think you'll agree with this. He was very dramatic. He'd always be like, we need to look ourselves in the mirror and fix this. Or I got to be better as the coach. This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And he'd always, like, he's just drama. Like, he's just throwing out drama for no reason.
Yeah.
And it was just odd and out of place. And if I were a player, I just wouldn't want to play for a coach like that. I just feel a lot of pressure every night. And apparently this Berube guy, and this has been told firsthand from these experts who've been showing up to the games, much more chill. You see it in the press conferences after the game. He just talks the facts. He's more just blunt. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, but he's also not a drama queen at the same time. He just says it as it is, and apparently the players love him. They wanted him. They gave up on Yo just to get him as their coach. And you look where they are now. It's just really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I haven't been pleased watching their ascension. We had that
bet, which the fans will not forget about.
No, what bet, Nick? Like,
who finishes higher, Edmonton?
No. There was no bet.
You're just okay. You're just in denial now.
I mean,
just tossing it out of your mind.
So I've lost the bet already. It's impossible, like literally impossible for me to win. It's almost mathematically impossible.
Come on, you got Edmonton. They got Mikko Koskinen. Come on, you got
Edmonton.
the Hitchcock.
Edmonton.
I said there was an 80% chance of this team getting into the playoffs.
Edmonton?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Way back
That's another
when.
team we all flip-flopped on. We're like, oh, you never know.
I still believe in them.
What are you talking about?
I haven't given up on Edmonton.
How could you not give up on Edmonton?
They got a shot at the final wild card.
They don't.
They got a shot.
They have way less than a shot than the Avalanche.
They're going to make a trade.
They're going to... What are they going to trade?
You heard those
for what?
You heard those
Pugliarvi?
You heard those rumors of Hitchcock? He was sitting in the stands at practice talking to Keith Gretzky.
Yeah.
What do you think that conversation's like?
I think it's like let's shut this down in the most noble way possible.
You think so?
I do.
I think that's. I need more of this. I need more of this. Get this for me. No.
You know what? The way that Hitchcock shat on his team in the public eye the other day.
Did you
People
like
were
that?
Pissed. No, I didn't like that. He said something like, that the coaches can't care more than the players. When that happens, we're all sunk. And you know what? I'll tell you this: the players did not take that lightly. You heard some interviews. You heard Draisaitl saying, "Oh, that's not the case. I don't know why he would say that." You don't say that. The players, they want to win. It's just something's not working. And Hitchcock, he's a Penguin, and he's not a good guy.
What I don't like about that is this guy's never played in the NHL.
Ooh.
This guy's never even played like semi-pro
Exactly.
hockey. He came out of a Played Against Sports sharpening hockey skates.
Did he really?
Yes.
No.
Yes, in Edmonton. Yes.
Really?
Yes. Not a Played Again, but like some sports goods
Some
store.
shop.
Yeah.
And he ran
He ran the store and he became an NHL coach.
Wow.
Yeah, great story. But anyways, this is a guy who's never laced up a pair of skates in his life.
So it's a huge statement.
So it's a bold statement. I think we can both agree it's a lot harder to play in the NHL than it is to coach in the NHL.
Fuck yeah. Yes.
Any of us can coach in the NHL. We could win a game coaching in
Fucking
the
right.
NHL.
Absolutely.
So for this guy to say the players need to want it more than the coach, like, come on, shut that up. If you don't know the difference between coaching and playing, you have no authority to be making that call. If this was a former player, then maybe I pay attention. But for Hitch to say that, I lost a bit of respect for him on that one.
It's a huge Penguin comment, seriously. Did you see the rumblings about Pugliarvi?
I did.
About his agent coming out and saying, we don't know if Edmonton's the right fit. We'd be open to a trade, something along those lines. And boy, what a tragic situation we've seen in Edmonton with this guy. I mean, just such a raw talent, and they've seemingly ruined his career.
And if I may interject, this
You
is
may.
another reason where Pierre got it right. Flashback.
Let me guess. He said something obvious, and it made it sound like only he
What
was
draft
saying
did
it.
What draft did he go in? Which draft?
2016,
was that?
right
Who was
after
the first overall there?
Matthews, Laine, and then Pierre-Luc Dubois, and then Pugliarvi.
Exactly. So that's where I want to redirect you here. Columbus. Who's their GM?
Jarmo.
There you go.
Kekalainen.
Apparently, they've got the most. They have the strongest boots on the ground kind of presence in Finnish scouting. Given he is their GM, they know these players the best out of any other team in the league. You had pundits like Bob McKenzie. Well, I don't know if it was Bob, but you had a lot of pundits come that third pick who were saying, all right, Yarmo, this is when he just takes the Finnish kid. You know,
Everybody.
the Finnish kid, he's just going to take the Finnish kid.
Yeah.
What's he do? He goes up there. What's he say, Kyle?
From the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, Pierre-Luc Dubois.
And guys like Pierre said, this was the right pick. This kid's going to be a star.
He didn't say that right away.
He didn't?
There's no way he said that right. I don't know.
He said he was going to be, I don't know. Now he says he's a star.
I would be very surprised if...
This morning he was like, look at me, look at it now. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a star, and that kid from Edmonton, nowhere close to being a star.
Oh my God. Could you... I'm going to say two things. First of all, I'm not listening to what Pierre says with this until I see or hear the clip.
Okay.
Show me the clip. Find it where he says, now, at third overall, here's what I would do. Or even when he's drafted, I want to hear Pierre say, well, you know what? This is exactly what the Columbus needs right now. This is exactly what they need. Now, the second thing I want to say. Now, can we flip this? Can we say that Columbus did draft Puljujarvi and Edmonton got Pierre-Luc Dubois? What kind of situation is Edmonton in? Would this not look completely different for them? Like what a game changer this guy would have been. Imagine him as a second line role. You've got Draisaitl in on that McDavid slot, Nugent Hopkins sliding in right beside Dubois, or even a third line guy. Things look a lot different.
Was Dubois even in that potato challenge thing?
Oh no!
See,
he wasn't.
You got to consider that.
You have to consider that.
You could have Barzal and Dubois and Taylor Hall and Eberle.
But that's more of like a luck
filthy.
thing. That's a luck thing. That's not what they had control over.
Who was the consensus 3 pick in that draft?
It was Puljujarvi.
Okay.
100 all the way.
Okay.
After they saw that World Junior with Laine and Puljujarvi, and Aho was on that line as well. They were like, this guy's the real deal.
Wow.
Like they knew, and maybe he just had a hot tournament. Like the book is still out on this guy. I mean, who knows what would have happened if he went somewhere else? But like, what a crazy scenario if Edmonton got a little bit more lucky and got a Dubois. That would have been unbelievable for them. But
no, I think this guy has to be on the trade bait board for sure.
Oh yeah.
I heard some rumors about Chicago maybe being a fit. We'll see.
They love to take these reclamation projects.
Yep. So
look at the Pizza Man.
There you go.
He's killing it.
He is killing it. That's a big win.
It's a huge win. That was such a savvy move on their part. They saw an opportunity and they pounced. It really good on them. He's fitting right in on that second line.
Yeah,
and for years to come too. He's such a young guy.
That young kid, Colleton, he's really insulated him well with those players there.
Yeah.
Playing him with the leaders in Kane, but then also playing him with the younger guys he has chemistry with, like the DeBrinkets.
Yeah.
It's been a good story there in Chicago, which I believe leads us to our next topic. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, I was going to bring this up later, but what a great segue. So in the East and West, we're seeing two potential miracle stories a la Hamburglar. So we're seeing Philly obviously continue their winning ways. They had their streak snapped recently, but they're back in the win column tonight. So we've got Philly making an unbelievable push. And we've also got Chicago doing something very, very similar in the West. I mean, these teams were guys, people wrote them off long, long ago. My question to you is this. Do we choose a Chicago team with a new up-and-comer coach and a pizza man and a strange goalie, or do we choose the Philadelphia Flyers with a seemingly very good roster, rookie goalie Carter Hart? Now he's got a mentor named Cameron Talbot. What are we doing here, Nick? Who do you have making more likely to make this miracle run and make a solid go at a last wild card spot?
See, it's almost unfair because on paper, I almost like the Flyers more. I
would agree.
I like the younger kids on their team. I just saw Konechny today score that game winner.
Oh,
he had a great goal.
I jumping
picked him
off
up
the
in
roof.
fantasy. I like the guy, and you see, the Nolan Patrick was hot earlier. He scored again this afternoon.
He had 3 points tonight.
You got the veterans who are always going to be there. Couturier's been on fire. Anyone would love him on your fantasy team right now.
Fucking love Couturier.
They look to me like the more talented team. I like the Talbot move that they just made because it gives you like a proven backup to mentor the kid Hart. I mean, Hart, he's got to respect this guy. This is a guy who just started over 70 games in one season and put up Vezina splits.
Oh, yeah,
I don't care about what he's done this year. That's a debacle there. I think it says more about the team than the goaltender. That was a great pick, and they gave up Stolars for him. He's on an expiring contract, so you kind of get to dictate the terms of where it goes from there.
Yeah,
I really like that move. I love their team all around, and but as I said, it's an unfair question because I like the context of a team making a run in the West more than the East. Because if you look at who Philly has to go past, they gotta get past Pittsburgh or Columbus or Washington or Islanders.
Tough.
It's super tough.
Yeah.
And I just don't see one of those teams falling. I think the 8 that are in the East right now stay there. And I don't think you can deny that. Carolina's a good story. Buffalo's a good story, but I'm sorry. I don't know if they got enough in the tank. Whereas in the West, I could easily see Minnesota dropping out or Vancouver dropping out or Colorado or even Dallas. I mean, those are teams you can foreseeably leapfrog. So I like Philly more, but I think Chicago's in more of a... they've got the advantage with where they're placed right now.
Not to mention Chicago's just a mere 3 points out, which is super in reach. And Philly's got 6 points to make up. But at the same time, the wild card I'm going to throw out here, Nick, is what does Columbus do in their extremely egregious situation with their guys, Panarin and Bobrovsky? They're troublesome Russians. If they lose those guys, and they've been a little shaky recently. Tension has been a little bit high for them, and this next week is absolutely crucial for what happens to them in the future and definitely for the rest of the season. So if they do screw up this trade, if they do make a trade somehow, or trades, then we could see them having some wobbly tires here, Nick. So, I think that's the wild card, and I'm with you on the fact that I like Philly more, but Chicago is in a prime spot to make a miracle run. I mean, it's just like St. Louis; they're surging right now. So we'll keep a close eye on that, but we'll quickly move on. I want to quickly get into the Dipietro debacle here. So
the lead story of the week.
So just quickly, he got called up on an emergency basis. Of course, we know that. And he got into a game, guys. He played against San Jose for his first NHL game, lit up like a Christmas tree. And there was a lot of stinky goals out there, Nick, including that blubbery shot from the blue line. This has got to hurt his confidence, but we know he's got some character in that little noodle there. So why don't you talk about that interview he had right after the game?
Oh, man. First off, for a 19-year-old to face the media in Vancouver after that debacle, I don't know how you do that. You got to have some cojones to do that. Like that was a character move. That's why I selected him to be on my Olympic team for things like that. Oh my
God.
And boy, I was so surprised. I was just happy he had an interview. And then I listened to the interview, just so well spoken, there for his teammates, said all the right things, how he's going to build from this. I just feel terribly bad for the kid. You go from playing one night in that shitty Kingston arena that I just attended, where the fans are eating those giant bacon on a stick, and the quality of the play is just a shitstorm.
Yeah.
And the next night you're taking snapshots where Evander Kane's going bar down on you. I mean, like, how do you face that? I mean, it's just adversity. If that's not adversity, I don't know what is. And I got to applaud the kid. I know he got beat, but I think it was he'll regroup from this. I think if there's anything to read into here, it's how Vancouver treated him, and I think you'd agree.
Yeah, and like if it was me, Nick, and I went through that same thing, I'd want to hide myself all week from those people, the cameras. I'd want to disappear, go into a cave, go into a submarine in the Atlantic, anything. I'd want to get the hell out of there. But so great on him for taking the interview at all. One more thing I want to say on this is shame on those Canucks for playing so bad in front of him. They stunk that night. And they said themselves, we were embarrassed by the product we put in front of this rookie goaltender. And that they mentioned that in the interview. So it sucks that the Canucks played like that, and good for them for owning up for it, but it doesn't change the fact that you should be really fired up and give this kid, your best effort. And it simply wasn't there, which is disappointing.
And see, I thought you were just about to say shame about the management, because this to me was a debacle. And I don't want to give you a history lesson here. I know I'm quite the historian, but I don't want to go too deep into their depth chart. They had they had the Bachman guy in AHL. He was their guy. He got injured or something. Then they picked up McKenna from Ottawa. And they had him for a little bit, but then there was a weird situation where they wanted to send him down, and he got claimed off waivers, so like they lost him, and then of course you had Demko, his camp knocking on the door saying, "Hey, we got to get him to the NHL. We don't want him in the AHL anymore." He comes up, he gets injured, and these guys are falling like flies, and so these management people in Vancouver are like, "Well, Dipietro's the only guy we got left, so let's call him up, and he won't have to play anyways. We'll just give Markstrom all the starts, and it won't be a big deal." Next thing you know, Markstrom, he goes down, and then they're like, "Well, now shit, what do we do? Now we gotta play him."
Yeah,
and it's almost like they just didn't plan for it. They and like the day after that debacle by Dipietro, they go out and sign some rando.
Yeah.
As if they couldn't do that a few days earlier.
Yes.
I mean, it's just poor management 101. Shame on the team. And, man, you got to shake your head at situations like that.
Now, I have a very strong theory on what went through their heads in this situation. Now, I think at the beginning of the season, any reasonable hockey person would have agreed with everything. Don't bring this guy up, don't send him to the Wolves. But we saw something crazy happen in the last few weeks, and that is Carter Hart. Now, we're all against, I was certainly against, do not put Carter Hart in this situation, especially on this Tire Fire Flyers team. What everyone saw, what the league saw, was that a 20-year-old goaltender had the capability to not only play in this league, but play well. So I think that's why the Canucks management thought, you know what, let's try this. Let's give it a go. Let's put him in the situation and see what happens. If he has a Carter Hart type of run and he looks comfortable, great. If not, then we'll chalk it down to, we gave you your experience. So in that way, I totally get where why they tried what they did. But let's wipe our hands and move on from this, Nick, because I'm sure that's what Dipietro wants to do. He wants to say, dream come true, like he said, but it's not the outcome I wanted, and I'm going to work on what my falters were in the game. So, yeah, I don't blame the Canucks management too much. They got excited by the Carter Hart situation.
Yeah, and good news is he got sent down to the 67s. As a fan in Kingston, I'm happy to say I'll be seeing him again in 3 weeks or so. I'll be sitting behind young Dipietro as he makes his start in that Kingston arena. I'll be wearing a Vancouver Canucks jersey, proud, and we'll see how he reacts.
Yeah, that's great, Nick. Just the fact that you have a Canucks jersey is a fucking miracle. I still don't know the story behind that. Why do you have that Luongo #1?
Well, I just loved Luongo when he was there. I thought he was the shit.
Nice.
And the great thing is, if Dipietro ends up getting the call up, he wears the #1. That's his number in junior. I just take off the name. I get Dipietro on there, and I got a new jersey.
Yeah. What does he wear now?
#1.
Oh, he does, eh?
He wore 75 when he got called up, but I think that was just an emergency thing.
Gotcha.
But with the junior team, he wears 1.
Yeah. So, Nick, we got time for one more topic. And I have to be selfish with this one. There's a topic that I simply must touch on before we call it quits here. Alexis Lafreniere has made the headlines this week, and I think it's really interesting what's going on, Nick. Now, we all know the hype about this kid, and he's just absolutely tearing up the queue. Since he came back from the World Juniors, he's been on a tear. Now, I'm going to say something that I didn't even know until I looked it up recently. He's tied for first now in league scoring as a 17-and-a-half-year-old. And that's with playing a lot less games than the other guys because of that World Junior stint. So the guy's now leading the league in points and is D-1 year. It's insane what he's doing. He had an absolutely dazzling outdoor game where he scored 2 beautiful goals. And then aside from that, he made headlines by stating that he'd be staying in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League for next year. Now, a lot of speculation was out there that he would go to Europe to play a season similar to Matthews, where he plays against older guys, a bit heavier, faster game in the Swiss league, perhaps, and he put that to rest. He simply said, "You know what? I'm going to stay loyal to my team. Things are going well here in the queue. Rimouski, it's a good team right now. We have a shot at maybe a Memorial Cup," and he didn't want to put that away. And I say that's good for his development. Why change what's going right? And I think if this trajectory continues, Nick, he's living up to his billing right now. And especially if they make noise in the playoffs, like this guy just continues to wow people with his production. It's truly remarkable. And we haven't seen something like this out of the queue for a long time. McKinnon didn't put up these numbers. Duran certainly didn't put up these numbers in this age, so it's remarkable. It really is.
Yeah, well, you're the expert on this junior guy. I'm not going to talk too much, but what I will say is, you know very well, I wasn't too impressed with his performance of the World Junior. That's really the only chance I get to see these guys, especially the guys out east or out west, not the guys in the OHL who I can see live. So, hey, I love hearing this. It's reassuring. I'm cheering for this kid. I just personally have yet to see it, and I look forward to maybe see him. Is his team maybe going to be in the Memorial Cup? Is the Rimouski right up there?
They're winning a lot of games lately, Nick. Okay. It's very possible. Originally in the first part of the season, they weren't in that conversation, but they're surely in the top 10 in the CHL recently, for sure.
Okay,
there's a chance.
Fingers crossed they can make it and qualify for that, because I do tune in for that, and that would be a nice little stage for him to really put up some points on.
Yeah, and we're just really quickly, the Under-18 World Championships, which he was in last year as a 16-year-old, is coming up. So he's going to be in the prime age to hopefully dominate that tournament. And he was one of the better players as a 16-year-old. So you could even see it's possible. I'm not sure if it can happen, but you could see a Jack Hughes, Alexis Lafreniere matchup in that tournament. So that's something we would really love to see for sure.
All right. Well, with that said, we are going to end this episode on that note. We look forward, we're happy you guys all tuned in yet again for this episode 26. Of course, there was not a lot we got to touch on, but we will get to it next week. We got another Leafs-Habs game coming up next Saturday. That'll be exciting to talk about. We couldn't get into the weird Pasternak injury, but needless to say, next week we'll have stories about guys cutting their fingers, cutting chicken breasts, guys taking tennis balls off their eye in practice. A bunch of goofy stories like that in honor of the young David Pasternak. So unless you got anything to add, Kyle, I think that's a good little teaser of what's up to come. And I think we ended on that note.
I think we are solid, Nick. We're just we're going to keep our eyes glued to the screen and keep your eyes on the trade bait board. I can't wait to see
coming
what.
Up too, yeah.
I mean, the Ottawa guys are coming to a head here. They should have figured that out already. We should know by now whether they're looking to move these guys, but we don't. And that will just be amazing, amazing content once it happens. So we can't wait, and hopefully by next week we have some huge, huge news to discuss. But without further ado, Nick, it's been a great episode, and this is Rink Moose
signing off.